Hello, it's Rachel at From Moments to Milestones, and I'm here today with our newest 3-card class featuring the Hey Honey stamp and die set from Pink and Maine. We are going to make these 3 cards. An easel card. Stand up like so. Get up here so you can see. Like that. So let's jump in. I'm going to talk about the other supplies you're going to need to make the cards. So you're going to need some distress inks and a blending brush. I have scattered straw and wild honey. And then we're also going to use distress inks as a watercolor. So I have a watercolor pen here. And then I have some mini cubes. I'm just going to squish them onto my surface here and use them to color the images in each kit. These are stamped on watercolor paper. So we're going to color the images that way. So the colors I have, again, are the scattered straw, wild honey. Those are for the bees. 2 browns. I have walnut stain and ground espresso. I have saltwater taffy. That's for the flowers and the cheeks of the bees. Peeled paint for the leaves. And tumble glass, that will be for like the wings of the bees. So I'm probably going to start. Oh, you're also going to need black soot for this first card as well, and maybe a blending brush or a dauber. That's how we inked up that black scallop frame. So I've got everything I need here. So let's dump out our kit, and we will start with the coloring of the images. So I will probably just speed it up and you can watch me color, but really the coloring is going to be the same in each thing. So I may skip past it in some of them, but if you want to watch, or you can fast forward. All right, so I have my ink cubes here. I'm going to squish my colors onto those little squares. Got some tumble glass. This is all going to be for the bee. And I'm going to start there with the bee. And then we have, let's see, we're going to use the saltwater taffy. And I don't think I need any brown. Oh, I need black soot. So I'll put some of that over there. And then I've got my watercolor pen. So we will start, get that flowing with water. So yeah, I just started way too much water. I don't know if I have another image to use, so I'm going to go in and get it wet first and then come in and add the color. I like this watercolor paper. It's different than the one I used. Okay. I'm going to go in and get it wet, and then I'm going to drop the color in. All right, so I started coloring off camera, and I'm going to admit I used different watercolor paper to kit this class than I used when I designed these cards. And you can see that this paper is not taking the ink as well as the paper I use there. Simon Hurley watercolor paper. It feels like watercolor paper, but when I put this color down, so I'm going to put some water down, and it is, it's also making my, the outline, and like if I take it straight to paper and then I can't really move it around, it's not really acting like watercolor paper. So maybe I misread the label. I don't have it here with me. But if you want to try watercoloring, I think you could still get away with it. Certainly not going to flow like it did on this paper that I use. So I apologize for that. I would suggest not using a lot of water. I'm going to try to stick with it because you guys are going to have to stick with it. But like I said, maybe, yeah, it's making my, and that is, should be a permanent ink. I'm not really sure if it's made for something special. I apologize. I don't know, maybe if I just need to get used to how it works. Not terrible. That bee image is, my brush had way too much water and it just oozed out, but it just ruined that piece. So I'm going to try to stick with it here. But if you decided to try a different coloring medium, you might try that. I would think that it would hold up to Copics if that's what you like. Yeah, I'm going to get it wet and then I'm just going to drop the color in. But I definitely don't have the freedom that I had the other paper I used, which was Bristol Smooth. I used the peeled paint on the leaves, and then for the flower centers, I know I went in with a scattered straw. And then I added some darker dots, like so. Little green right back in there. All right, that'll be one. So this is saltwater taffy here for the flowers, so I need a little bit more of that. So I'm gonna kind of go in with a pretty dry brush, lay down a very light bit of water. Actually, I'm just gonna pick up the color. I mean, watercolor is supposed to be a little imperfect, so really embrace that here. All right, so I'm just going in with color. Then maybe when it dries back, I can go in and add more concentrated color and get some highlights. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to add a little bit of water to that, pick up the color, and it in. Scattered straw in the centers. Centers with some darker. All right, and then for these little honeycombs, I use scattered straw over the whole surface. And then I'm going to go in with the dark and just kind of add the shadow where that line is. I'm just going to add some dark color in there. So there's the honeycomb. I am making the watercolor work. So I think if you're patient, then you'll be all right. All right, I have my images colored. They're fairly dry. I am going to go in and try to add some darker bits of the pink just to add some highlights here and there. But I am finding my way with this paper, so I wouldn't suggest using a lot of water, but I would use a watered down version of the color, or you won't be able to add highlights, if that makes sense. So since I can go in now and add darker color that it's dried, kind of get that look I was going for. But that's the beauty of watercolor. It's imperfect. And those images are done. I'm going to add a little bit more dark there. Maybe some here. When it dries, you can kind of see. All right. So those are done. And then you're going to have these 3 honeycomb die cuts. They're white. And you are going to take your blending brush and the scattered straw or the wild honey. Actually, I think I used both. So let's start with the scattered straw. And we're just going to ink those. And they don't have to be perfect. I want some variation in color, so. All right, so there's the wild honey, or the scattered straw. Now I'm going to go in and add some wild honey here and there. That color is darker. I'm just here and there, not everywhere. There are those. And then we have, and then we have this scallop piece here. So what I'm going to need is the black soot here. And I'm just going to add color. To that frame. I didn't want it dark black. It was too harsh. So just with the ink, you'll get a light color that'll more match the color of your bee. And that surface. We have all of our images. Now this one's not done, but I'm going to color him just for the sake so you can see how I would have colored him. So on the bee spots, I go in with the, well, I did that wrong. But anyway, go with the scattered straw and then the honey to add some dark areas. Okay. His body and legs are the black soot. And then the flower is the same as the flowers colored. His little antennas are black as well. And then for his cheeks, I went in with some of that saltwater taffy and just gave him cheeks. So that's how you would color the bee. when I get a chance. I'm going to cut a new one. I do not actually have that die here with me at home, so I'll have to do that another time. So when you've got all the images colored, everything's inked up. So now we're going to go ahead and put it together. So the first thing we're going to do is take this white stitched hexagon, and we are going to glue it right inside. So this is a window in your card, but you're just going to glue it to the inside panel through the window. So, just like that. And now when you open your card, that panel's still there. And we are going to take this inked frame, glue, and that is going to go around the outside of the frame. Like so. And then we have two of these flower bits. So we're going to glue one like this, and it's going to go straight down. So I'm not going to put any glue where it's going to stick through the window. Just like so. And then this piece is going to go over the top. You could, however you want to do it. I did pop this one up. We've got that front one popped up, and I can't see any of that on the inside. And your little bee, you're going to stick him right to that so that when you open, he's still in there. For now, I'll just put some temporary adhesive that I could take him off. But I'm just going to tuck him in behind the flowers, like so. All right, so we've got our little bee on there, and I am going to say that I should have done the part I'm going to do right now earlier, because I'm going to pull it back. These should have went down first. So you have these honeycombs. You're going to put one up here in the corner. We're going to trim it off, and then I'm going to use what I trim off possibly. And then down here, the biggest thing that I tried to do was to keep my honeycomb kind of in the same shape as the one here. So the flat side is parallel with like the top and bottom of the card. So when I place them down, I'm going to keep that in mind, and that will keep them all kind of going the same direction. So for this one here, I'm going to go in like that. And then I'm just going to match them up underneath each other like this. So it'll be kind of seamless. And here where these two overlap right here, I'm going to cover it with one of these, then you won't even be able to tell. So that, and then I'm going to trim off and use any excess if I can. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those down. Just like so. Tuck that one in. And I just kind of got it where it kind of wraps around that sentiment. So that sentiment looks like it was meant to go right there. And I'll glue that back down. It's all ripped up, so I'm going to have to. And then this I'm just going to lay over the top. Like so. All right, so I've got them on there, and then what I'm going to do is just take some nice long straight edge scissors and trim them off. And then those remaining pieces, if I want to fill in anywhere, I can. So I could put them up here, just however you want to do it. I think this, yeah, just like that. I'm going to add those right there. So just however, there's really no right or wrong, but you should end up with similar scraps that you could piece it together. And keeping them all go the same direction will help that your scraps are something you could use. So that's really all I did right there, but you could certainly add more if you wanted. I think I'm going to leave it be. I'm going to toss these two pieces. And then over here, I didn't get them glued down very well. Right. And then I'm going to take these little honeycomb and just stick them wherever. So I've got one here covering up those seams. So I'm just going to put glue right there. And I was also trying to keep with that same idea in mind that the bottoms of the hexagons are parallel. So I'm going to do that same thing. Let's see, this one goes up here. And then got one kind of tucked in behind the flowers. Just like so. And that finishes that card. All right, for our next card, hey honey, we're going to start with the coloring again. I'm just going to get out. You should have a honey pot and 2 bees. That's where I'm going to start coloring, and everything else I'll leave alone. All right, so I am going to go in with a scattered straw and just color it in. So I'm going to try to stay away from those from the black lines if I can. So this is where I'm just finding that I really need to work with a really watered down color, not too much water but not too dry, and then the color can move around. I'm guessing maybe this watercolor paper is just kind of a lower quality than what maybe I had originally. It's working. All right. And then I'm going to come in with the wild honey and just kind of create some darker spots and give my honeycomb some, or my hive, some dimension. I'm going to come in, and then I'll probably come in on the sides. Oops. There. All right. And then I'm going to use this color heavily on the inside of the honeycomb opening. And then I'm going to introduce some new colors. So I need walnut stain. And then I also use ground espresso to get some more depth in there. So light and a dark brown. And I'll put the brown inside of the opening. darker brown in there. Create some shadows. And then I'm just going to use the wild honey on the honey. Go. All right, so there's the honeycomb. And then we're going to go in and do the bee. So I'm going to start with his little legs and bottom here. Being very gentle with this color because I'm not sure why the black is wanting to bleed so bad versus the other colors. Wondering if I should have tried a gray. Right. Little antennas. So if you are getting these spots, I'm going to grab a paper towel. All right. So right here, I've got too much. I'm going to clean my brush out. I'm going to add water right where I'm going to try to pick it up. All right, that helped a little. I'm going to let that dry, and then you can speed up your drying time with a heat tool. So I'm going to do that real quick. Now I can go into his face, and I'm going to use scattered straw. Water that down. All right, so he's got a little yellow face. And then again with a scattered straw, I'm going to do his stripes here. And the collar. And this honey on the edge of the dipper. And then I'm going to go in with wild honey and add shadows. All right, so there's the honey. And then I'm going to use the tumbled glass for the wings. And really darker, and then I'm going to lighten it up as it goes out. So not completely blue. And then for the honeycomb, I'm going to go back in, or the actual honey dipper, I'm going to use the walnut stain and the ground espresso if I need it. And I'm going to make sure his face is dry before I go in and add his pink cheeks. So let me dry that. I'm going to go in with a little bit of the taffy and just give him some little pink cheeks, just like that. So sweet. And then I'm going to repeat those steps on this honeybee, the same colors, and I'm going to use the same browns for the pot. All right, I've got my images colored. I'm going to set those aside to dry while we work on the rest of the card. So you're going to have 2 of these panels and the one that goes in the center. And we're going to need the scattered straw and wild honey and the blending brush. So we're going to blend some color on. I'm going to start with the scattered straw and just go around and add some of that yellow everywhere. And then I'm going to go in with the wild honey and darken the edges. All right, so there's those 3. And then I'm going to grab this scalloped hexagon, and just using wild honey, I'm really going to focus because we just need the edges, but I want them to be that dark honey color. Just like that. All right. And then the one last thing to ink is going to be this little honey drip. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to use the wild honey gently on that. It's a delicate dye. Just like so. Clean up. All right, so we're ready to assemble the card. So this is your card base. We cut it with a hex flip die from Pink and, well, that did not cut all the way. I have a broken plate on my die cut machine. So hopefully that's not on yours, but if it is, just go in with a blade, and now it's cut. So the only place that it should be cut is that hexagon shape, and then there should be a score line. And what we're going to do is just fold back on that score line and then fold those down. So that's how you end up with the hex flip. Okay. And then you have these 2 pieces that we just inked. The one with more of the honeycomb stamped goes on the left and the other goes on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those down. All right, and then we have this piece here that is going to get glued to the center of the horizontal, or the hexagon in the center. And then this piece fits in just like so right there. And then we're going to pop this up. Now, I don't think these are dry very well, so I'm going to dry them up a little bit. Okay, that will help the adhesive stick. So I'm going to put some foam on the back of that hive. And that hive is going to go in the center of that hexagon, just like so. And then you have the bee with the honey dipper. And he's going to get glued on top of the hive, but we don't want him to catch on the flip. So you need to make sure that he's completely inside that hexagon when you glue him on. Right, like so. And you could put some foam on the back of him if you feel that you need to, but there he is. And you do have that sentiment. And that is also just glued straight to the hive. I've got it right here. Hey, honey. All right, and now we're going to open the card. And you have this piece that's going to fit in here. Now you can just try to center it up and glue it down. What I'm going to do is open my card like so. I'm going to lay it face down, making sure the sentiment's going the way I want. Okay. And I'm going to center it inside of there and put some glue down. So it's centered, and then I'm just going to close the card this way, and it'll pick it up and put it right where I want it. I'm going to put that drip of honey on the top of the hexagon. And then our little bee friend is just going to go up here. You can pop him. I think I did pop him up. You don't have to if you don't want to. And then he is just up here in the corner. That finishes off that card. All right, we have one final card here. And probably we'll start with the coloring of the images. And then we'll have some inking to do. So just like before. All right, I have my images all colored, cleaned up my palette, and now we're ready to, we got a little bit of inking to do. So you're going to need this. You have a solid panel, and you have this one with the honeycomb stamped across the top. So I'm going to use scattered straw. clean the wild honey off my brush. We're going to use scattered straw on the edges of this. So just around the edges. And then we're also going to do that. Let me see. The same thing. So this is your white card base. You do have a score line here. Then you open it up. It says sending well wishes. I'm going to do the bottom and just kind of slowly go up and fade away towards the top. And that will just help that when our card is actually open like this, that it's not stark white and it kind of blends all together. All right, so then you have this plain white panel. And we're going to just go in with wild honey just on the edges. You're going to have a very thin border. So you don't have to go real deep. Just the edges. That wild honey. All right. Just like that. Clean up the ink. Okay. So let's work on putting this together. So here you have, your card base will just have the score line. What I want you to do is fold it inside like so. So you're going to be left with a piece that looks like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to open it up and we're just going to put glue on this portion right here. Okay. And then this piece, we're going to line up, but it's only going to stick where we have the glue. All right, so now when we pull this open, it can do that. Does that make sense? Okay. And then what will really keep that card open is one other piece I forgot to ink. So you should have these 6 little hexagons in your kit. You just need 3, and we're going to ink them. You can use just the whatever you want to use. I'm just going to go in, and I'm not going to make them all solid. I'm just going to have darker spots. I'm just using what's left on my brush from the wild honey. So there they are. And then these other 3 can stay white because we're just going to give them some dimension that will help keep that card open when we want it to be open like an easel. So these are just going to get layered right on top. Now you have 3 layered hexagons. And so we're just going to open this card, and I'm just going to line one up right with the edge, right with the bottom edge of the card, just like so. Maybe about a ½ an inch over. There's really no right or wrong. And then this one, I'm going to butt right up to, let's see, yep, I've got it just butted up to that one, like so. And so now when you open it, it's going to hold your card open because it's going to catch right there. Now, if you want to have something catch it on both sides, you're going to want to put this other one right there. Now, there's that. And that will keep your card open on display. All right. So this piece is going to go glued center on that panel. See a little bit of that dark colored border. So, and lastly, we're just going to embellish with these colored images. So I have this little guy is tucked in behind there, and everything else is popped up. I am missing my little buzz marks. Hopefully those are in your kit. But those, I didn't ink or anything. I just glued those on. So this is about the placement. This is the only one that is glued straight down. I'm going to go and tuck him in. And then everything else is popped up. Right here. And then if you have your little buzz mark, you can just glue that on there. I'm not sure where mine went. But that finishes that card. Well, that does it for this card class. I hope you enjoyed these sweet little honeybees. I sure had fun designing with them. If you have any questions, you can leave them below and I'll do my best to answer. I'll also leave a link below to our website where you could purchase this and other card kits that are available at our online store. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.